There's one small detail in this case that took 20 years for anybody to catch. A single phone record. And the moment somebody finally looked at it, a man's whole story fell apart. See? He told police his wife slipped while he was setting up a sunrise photo on the edge of a cliff. Sounds simple enough, except the timestamp on his own 911 call says the sun wasn't even up yet. So what exactly was she doing on that edge? Let me tell you something. That's not even the strangest part. Her name was Bernadette. David Vander Meer, 29 years old, from Las Vegas, and by every single account of the people who loved her, she was something rare. One friend had known her since she was 13, 14 years old. This woman was pushing 64, and she said in all her years of living she'd never met another person like Bernadette. Kind to everybody. Never had a cruel word for anybody. She said Bernadette was almost like an angel walking around on earth. Said she felt inferior next to her. That's how good this woman was. And Bernadette had dreams too, real ones. She wanted to be a Christian singer, wanted to record her own music, make CDs, perform. She had the voice for it. She sang worship at her church. She even played Betty Boop at the MGM Grand on the Vegas Strip. Then poured drinks as a cocktail waitress over at the New York casino to keep the lights on while she chased the dream. But here's the thing you need to hold on to about Bernadette. She was outdoorsy. She hiked, she skied. Her own father called her a real mountain goat, said she was petite, tiny little thing, but he was amazed watching her move on a mountain. She wasn't clumsy. She wasn't careless. She didn't spook. Keep that in your mind, because it's going to matter. Now her husband, David Vander Meer. On paper, couldn't paint a cleaner picture. The man was a youth pastor at a church in Las Vegas, a man of God. The kind of man parents drop their kids off with on a Sunday morning and don't think twice about it. He led the young people. He was the trusted one. They met as teenagers. David and Bernadette, 16 years old, in a church play. 2 years later, they were married, brought together by their faith and a love of music. To the whole community, they looked like the model couple. Happy, devoted, role models. But hey, that's the picture on the outside. Behind their own front door, it was a different story. Money was the first crack. Bernadette was the breadwinner. She was the one out here working the casino floor, bringing home the checks and the tips. But according to her own mother, that money wasn't hers to spend. David had her handed over. Every week. Paycheck and tips both. The man was so tight with $1, her mother said he wouldn't even let her run to Starbucks. So now you got a woman working hard, earning the household's living, and can't even buy herself a coffee. Sit with that for a second. Then it got deeper. As the years rolled on, Bernadette started noticing something. Her husband was spending a whole lot of time alone with the teenage girls from his youth group. One girl especially. Bernadette told her mother that this girl was calling David all the time. All the time. She'd confronted him about how much time he spent with her. She was starting to see the outline of something. She just didn't know how bad it really was. Here's what Bernadette didn't know. For years, David had been carrying on with a girl from his own congregation. He was her pastor. He was 25 and married. He was the exact man her family trusted to look after her, and he hid it like a professional. They'd meet up at pay-by-the-hour motels. He bought the girl her own cell phone, just so they could talk in secret without anybody catching on and listen. Years later, investigators actually pulled the records from the phone company, and it backed up everything she said about that phone, down to the detail. There was this one time she said she and David were alone together inside the church, and Bernadette showed up, the wife. She was suspicious. She knew something wasn't right, and she started pounding on that door. So what did David do? He told this young girl to go answer the door and lie to his wife's face. Tell her I'm not here. Make it make sense. a youth pastor, hiding a teenage girl inside the house of God, telling her to lie to his wife. Now David never talked to this girl about a future, never promised her a wedding, a life, none of that. But one time, she said, he told her something she carried with her for 20 years. He told her the only way the two of them could ever be together was if Bernadette was not alive. I said what I said. Read it again if you need to. The only way they could be together is if his wife was not alive. That's not a slip of the tongue. That's not something you blurt out in an argument and forget. That's a man telling you his plan. And right around this same stretch of time, the money started moving. David took out life insurance, policies on himself and on Bernadette. Started off at $150,000 each. Then, that same year, he bumped them way up. Both policies, up to $550,000 a person. Now here's the part that don't add up. You know what this man made a year? About $38,000. $38,000 a year, but he's insuring his wife's life for over $500,000. Do the math on that. And it wasn't the first time David got creative with insurance either. Over about 8 years, this man filed claim after claim. One time he reported his truck stolen, and it turned up less than a mile from his own house. The young people who were around him when it happened said the way he was acting was suspicious. He collected on it anyway. Tens of thousands of dollars. Another time, a stolen drum set. Another payout. Prosecutors would later look at all of it and say plain, that's not bad luck, that's a pattern, that's a scheme. But hey, let's get back to the marriage. Because it was falling apart. Bernadette had reached her limit. She told David straight up. If he didn't change his ways, she wanted a divorce. Her mother said it was probably a week, maybe 2 weeks before the trip. And you know what this man said back to her? He didn't beg. He didn't say he loved her, didn't say, let's fix it. He said, what will people think? What will people think if a pastor gets divorced? That was his worry, his image, not his wife. About a month before the end, Bernadette met an old friend for lunch. Just 2 girlfriends catching up. But the friend noticed Bernadette seemed like she was holding something back. And finally she said it out loud. She thought David was cheating on her. She had no idea that getting close to the truth, pushing for that divorce, catching on to that girl, was the most dangerous thing she could possibly do. And then came the 3 days that decided everything. On a Sunday, the girl, S&H, ended it. 4 years, and she was finally done with David. The very next day, Monday, David loaded up his wife and took her to Utah, Zion National Park, a trip to celebrate their 10th wedding anniversary. And Bernadette, she was excited, because here's the thing. David didn't take her places. He'd take the youth group on trips, all kinds of trips, but he rarely took his own wife anywhere. So this felt special to her. Sunday, the girl walks away. Monday, he takes his wife to the mountains. Tuesday, well, let's get to Tuesday. You gotta understand this place first. Angel's Landing. If you're into deep dive true crime that actually explains the why, hit subscribe and lock in. I post a new case every week. It's one of the most beautiful hikes in all of America and one of the most dangerous, straight up. It's on every list for both. You're climbing almost 5 miles up to a rock formation that sits close to 6,000 feet in the air. And near the top, that trail gets narrow. We're talking a spine of rock with a drop on both sides of you. The only thing keeping you attached to this world is a chain bolted into the stone that you hold on to for dear life. People have died on that mountain. Over the years, close to 20 souls have gone over the edge. David and Bernadette started their climb in the dark, hours before the sun was supposed to come up, headlamps on, moving up the mountain. And by the time they reached that summit, they were alone. Nobody else up top. No other hikers, no witnesses. Just the two of them. and a whole lot of nothing underneath. Here's the story David told the police. He said they got to the top and he set up his camera. He wanted a picture of Bernadette standing on the edge with the sunrise glowing behind her, turning her into a silhouette. He said the shots needed a few seconds each because it was still so dark out. So Bernadette, she's standing near the edge waiting on him to take the picture. David said he noticed their backpacks were in the shot. So he picked him up, walked a few feet away, set him down. And when he turned back around, his wife was gone. He said he heard a scream as she fell. Said he didn't see her trip, didn't hear nothing before it. 1 second she's there, next second she's gone. 1,200 feet down. That's the story. And for 20 years it held. But let's go back to that phone record, that little detail from the top. David called 911 at 20 minutes past 6 that morning, in the dark. Now, on the day Bernadette died, the sun didn't come up over Angel's Landing until almost 7 o'clock. And there's mountains sitting to the east, which means that sun stayed hidden even longer than that. So the sunrise photo, the whole reason he gave for putting his wife on the edge of a cliff, the sun wasn't even up. There was no glowing sunrise behind her. There was no silhouette. His reason for standing her on that ledge in the dark doesn't match the sky. Oh, so now you see it. And there's one more thing. But this one took 20 years and technology that didn't even exist back then to prove. The exact spot where Bernadette went over, it wasn't one of the deadly spots. Angel's Landing has places that genuinely terrify people. Narrow little ledges where folks lose their footing and fall. Bernadette didn't fall from one of those. She went over from a stretch that was, relatively speaking, safe. By the time that sun finally cleared those mountains, Bernadette Vander Meer was already at the bottom of the canyon. And her husband was on the phone, telling the whole world it was an accident. So here's where the story should have ended. And for 20 years it did. The police came out to Zion that morning. They found Bernadette's body down on the canyon floor, 1,200 feet below. And they looked at what they had, a dangerous trail, a husband with a story, and no witnesses. Nobody up on that mountain but David. Now let me tell you something, it's not like those investigators just took his word and went home. Back in 2006, they actually looked at exactly where Bernadette fell, trying to figure out, was this consistent with a fall or a push? They interviewed David, and of course, he denied everything, said there were no real troubles in the marriage, said it was all good between them. They even talked to Bernadette's co-workers over at the casino, and those co-workers, they spoke up, said David was possessive, said he was strange about the family money, controlling with it, so people around her felt something was off. But hey, feeling something is off and proving it are two different things. And when those investigators laid it all out, there was no single piece of evidence pointing to murder. Not one. The location, his story, the lack of witnesses. It added up to suspicious, but suspicious don't hold up in a courtroom. So they made the ruling. Accident. Bernadette Vander Meer became a number one of more than a dozen people who fell from that trail over the years. A statistic, a closed file, a sad story you come across when you're reading up on a dangerous hike. And David Vander Meer, he walked away clean. But before he walked away, he made sure he got paid. Remember that life insurance? The policy he pumped up to over $500,000 right before the trip. Less than a year after his wife hit the bottom of that canyon, David collected more than $567,000. Let me say that number again so it sits right. $567,000. That's not a grieving husband scraping together money to bury his wife. That's a man who locked in the payout before she ever left the ground. And then he lived. Oh, he lived good. He took that money and moved into a new house, nearly 3 times the size, 3 times the cost of the home he shared with Bernadette. He took the youth group on trips. Prosecutors say he even bought that girl, S and H, a car and a house with some of it. So what did he do next? He married her, the girl he'd been grooming since she was 14. In 2008, they got legally married. Now the reason on paper was for health insurance. He needed to get on a policy, and this was the same year the church finally fired him. But hold on, you'd think they fired him for the girl, right? Nah, they fired him for throwing parties at his house for the underage kids in his youth group, giving them alcohol, letting them gamble. That's what got him fired. The relationship with the child, nobody at that church knew yet. Anyways, that marriage didn't last. When S and H started finding evidence he was cheating on her too, they separated, and by 2014 they were divorced, and David just kept moving, kept it pushing. After S and H, there'd be more marriages. 3 more after Bernadette. He changed jobs, became a student counselor at a school, Somerset Academy, working around kids again, became a yoga instructor at a studio out in Las Vegas, breathing in, breathing out, namaste. To the outside world, just a calm, peaceful man living his best life. He thought he beat it. He thought he was free and clear. And for a long, long time, he was, until he wasn't. Here's the thing about a cold case. Sometimes it don't stay cold because there's no evidence. Sometimes it stays cold because nobody's looking in the right place yet. And sometimes it just takes the right person finally deciding they've been quiet long enough. The first crack came in 2022. A tip landed with investigators from a former member of David's old youth group. And this person said David had been using his position at that church to groom kids. So the police pulled the thread. They tracked down the woman we know as S and H, and she talked. She confirmed it. She'd been in a sexual relationship with David during his marriage to Bernadette. Told them how it started when she was just a teenager. Told them about the church, the pay-by-the-hour motels, the secret phone. And then she told them about that one thing she never forgot. The thing David said. The only way they could be together is if Bernadette was not alive. Now the investigators heard that, and they knew what they were sitting on. But even then, even with all that, the case got looked at and it got closed again. Because a statement, as ugly as it is, still ain't a witness to a push. There was still nothing that put David's hands on his wife up on that ledge, so the file went quiet one more time. But this time, it didn't stay quiet for long. In late 2025, a second tip came in. And this one came from somebody who knew David real well. A man named Barry Diamond, the senior pastor at the church. David's old boss, the man who'd fired him years back. And Barry Diamond went to the authorities and said plainly what a lot of people had been afraid to say. He believed the death was not an accident. He believed David pushed Bernadette off that mountain. He pointed to the same things that never sat right. That 911 call before the sun came up. And the fact that the only accidents up there were either suspicious or ruled suicides. And where Bernadette fell just wasn't a normal place to fall. That did it. The case got reopened. And this time, they came at it with everything. They went back to SH, and she filled in the whole timeline. The relationship starting when she was a child, 4 years of it, while David stood up front and preached. And the breakup, that it happened on that Sunday, 2 days before Bernadette died. Sunday she ended it. Monday he took his wife to the mountains. Tuesday his wife was dead. Line it up, line it all the way up. But hey, here's where 2025 had something 2006 never did. Technology. Back in 2006, all they had was a man's word, a dangerous trail, and a body at the bottom. That was it. Not enough to move. This time, investigators used satellite imagery, pictures from space, and they used it to pinpoint the exact spot on that trail where Bernadette went over the edge, and what they found didn't match David's story at all. See? Angel's Landing has claimed lives. That part's true. There's more than 15 spots along that trail where people have gone over, but the specific place where Bernadette fell, it didn't line up with where the accidents actually happen. It didn't fit the pattern. People don't just slip and die from that stretch. So now you stack it all together. The satellite showing a fall in the wrong place, the 911 call in the dark, the insurance jacked up right before the trip and the payout collected right after, the secret relationship with a child, that statement. The only way they could be together, and the timeline so tight it makes your stomach turn. Investigators weren't looking at a tragic accident anymore. They were looking at a crime scene that had been hiding in plain sight for 2 decades. I said what I said, 20 years. Sitting there in plain sight. And through all of this, you know who never let it go? Bernadette's own mother, Laura. This woman suspected David from the jump. She said it herself. She suspected him all along. Years back, she'd found insurance policies in her daughter's name. Lots of them. That's what first turned her stomach. She'd even talked to an investigator once trying to get somebody to take on the case. And there was something else that haunted her. The morning of the day Bernadette died, her daughter had come to her, told her, "Mother, we upped our life insurance policy." And what Bernadette didn't even realize, what she said so innocently, was that David had kept the other policies too. She had no idea how much her own life had been priced at. So when the police came back around in 2025, Laura didn't just sit on the sideline. She worked with them, became a cooperating witness in the weeks leading right up to the arrest. 20 years she'd been waiting. 20 years she'd been gathering, watching, believing. And she was about to get the call she'd been waiting 2 decades for. On a Tuesday morning in June of 2026, nearly 20 years after Bernadette fell, U.S. Marshals walked into a yoga studio in Las Vegas and arrested David Vander Meer, right there where he taught his class. The calm man, the peaceful man, charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of insurance fraud. 20 years he'd been walking free, working, marrying, divorcing, breathing in and breathing out. And it all caught up to him between poses. Bernadette's mother got the news before almost anybody, and when a reporter reached her, she didn't hold nothing back. She had a message for the man she believed took her daughter. She said, "Accept what you did and admit it. Plead guilty." That's my message to David.
Accept what you did and admit it. Plead guilty. That's my message to David.
20 years of waiting, and it was finally about to mean something. And here's a detail that tells you everything. A friend of Bernadette's remembered the memorial service 6 days after the fall. Over 600 people showed up to say goodbye. And sitting there, near David, was the woman he'd been cheating with. The same woman Bernadette had suspected, right there at the funeral. This friend said she was appalled, and she noticed something else too. She said she was in anguish, everybody was sobbing. But David, she didn't see that same grief on him. Not the anguish, nothing. So now, 20 years later, the family finally had their day coming. The trial, the chance to sit in that courtroom and stare him down, to hear it all laid out loud. But that's not what happened. 2 days after the arrest, David Vander Meer was found in his jail cell with self-inflicted wounds. He was rushed to the hospital, and the next morning he was dead, 49 years old.
The Las Vegas man accused of killing his wife during a Utah hiking trip nearly 20 years ago is now dead.
He died while in custody.
There was a hearing scheduled that Thursday. Instead, the judge stood up in that Las Vegas courtroom and said it plain. Well, he's not here, he's deceased. And just like that,
so he's not here, he's deceased.
It was over. Taken off the calendar because you cannot try a dead man. The trial the family waited 20 years for. Gone before anybody walked through the door. Make it make sense. 2 decades of silence, 1 arrest, and 3 days later, he's gone. No verdict, no testimony, no moment where the whole truth got laid out for the world to see. So where does that leave everybody? Bernadette's mother called it as close to justice as they were going to get. Said she thought he knew his goose was cooked. One thing she said stuck with me. She said he took a beautiful wife and robbed her of her life. And a friend of Bernadette's, she saw it different. She figured David had been walking around carrying that guilt for 20 years, marrying person after person to distract himself, becoming a yoga instructor to breathe out all that bad energy, trying to clear something out of himself that would never come clean. Here's what did not disappear when David died. The investigators put it on the record. Officially, they concluded Bernadette's death was a homicide, not an accident. A homicide. And that ruling doesn't go away just because he'll never stand trial. It's part of her story now, forever. But hey, I'll leave the final verdict where it belongs, with you. Because there was never a witness on that mountain, never a camera. Just a story that didn't match the sky, a timeline that turns your stomach, and a man who chose not to answer for any of it. And maybe that's the part that should stay with all of us. Bernadette Vander Meer didn't die because a dangerous trail claimed her. According to the people who spent years rebuilding this case, she died because the person who was supposed to love her most decided she was in the way. She was 29. She was athletic, experienced, careful on a mountain. She was kind to everybody she ever met, and the people we trust the most. The ones standing up front, the ones we hand our children to, the ones whose last name we share. Sometimes they're the ones we should have been watching all along. Her name was Bernadette. And now, because one woman finally spoke up, because a picture from space told the truth, and because a mother refused to let it go.
I love you, Bernadette. I'll see you in heaven.
The world finally knows her story. That's the case, family. And I want to hear from you. Do you believe David pushed her? Or do you think a man died before he has ever got to defend himself? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. If this story moved you and you are into deep dive true crime that actually explains the why, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to Beyond Dark Cases. We post new case every week. We tell the stories the world forgot, the cold files, the quiet disappearances, the cases that still don't have their answers. Share this with somebody who needs to see it, and come on back. Because there's always another story waiting in the dark. This has been Beyond Dark Cases. Take care of each other out there.